Chapter 1. Walking the Walk. Windows Server 2022 User Experiences. Armin Shariarian. Walking the Walk, Windows Server 2022 User Experiences. Windows Server 2022 has two user experiences to choose from. What you use will depend on the workload you're wanting to support, as well as organizational requirements. In this section, I explain the desktop experience and the server core experience, as well as some pros and cons of each. Desktop experience. Desktop experience is what you would consider to be the standard graphical user interface, GUI, that you may have used in previous versions of the Windows Server operating systems. It allows you to interact with the system with buttons and menus rather than through the command line. Server with desktop experience can be managed through group policy if attached to an Active Directory domain, and workgroup, non-domain, servers can be managed via local group policy. Desktop experience tends to be the easier form of server installation and administration for beginning system administrators, but I highly recommend that you don't rely on the GUI, shown in Figure 1:1. Become a PowerShell ninja instead. PowerShell is a very versatile language and can be used on a variety of systems, including some of the newer versions of Linux. Figure 1:1. Server with desktop experience. Server core. Server core, shown in Figure 1:2, provides a much simpler interface if you connect to the console. You're greeted by a somewhat familiar-looking command window that prompts you for your username and password. After you've logged in, by default you're presented with this config window. When you choose to exit to command line from sconfig, you're given a PowerShell window to interact with. Initial configuration is done with the sconfig utility, though it could be done through a PowerShell script or PowerShell desired state configuration, DSC. This experience can be managed through group policy if attached to an Active Directory domain or through local group policy if they're workstation servers. Figure 1:2. Server core's config utility is where you perform initial configuration. Nano. Nano provides an even simpler interface and a much more limited console, which is referred to as the recovery console. It isn't available through the regular installer on the disk. Instead, you have to download the container image from Microsoft. Nano has a much smaller footprint, both in terms of disk and compute needs, than desktop experience or server core. Because it has a smaller overall footprint, the attack surface is also reduced. Windows Server Nano 2022 is available only as a container-based operating system image and can only be run as a container on a container host. Nano can't be managed through group policy. You need to use PowerShell DSC instead if you want to manage Nano at scale. You may be asking why you would even use Nano when it's such a limited version of the operating system. If you need to run container workloads that use .NET, Nano is an excellent candidate. Because it has been optimized to run .NET Core applications. If you want to check it out, you can download the Nano server images from Microsoft's container registry on Docker Hub with this command. Docker pull mcr.microsoft.com/windows/nanoserver. You can also go to https://hub.docker.com/_/Microsoft-Windows-nanoserver to see more information about the current Nano server container image. This includes a description of the image, reviews, and additional resources. If you want to find out more about containers and using Docker commands, check out Book 8. Note: you won't really see Nano discussed in depth anywhere in this book because you're far more likely to encounter the desktop experience or server core installations of Windows Server 2022.